Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
In fact, Robert Conrad detested him more than anybody. The birth of Robert Conrad. Conrad, March 1, 1935, Robert Falk in Illinois, Chicago. Born to a single-parent Conrad mother, and Alice Jacqueline Hartman was raised in a working-class area during a period when existence was anything but his formative years were characterized by grit from the blue-collar and a ferocious Lindenton nature that would eventually terrest his private life as well as his personas on screen. Conrad at first investigated a range of careers, including milk delivery and loading trucks routes and ongoing building projects. All of this provided him with a grounded, straightforward entity that struck a chord with his performing. His big break in show business came following his move to California, where he started going to acting classes while working as a stuntman concurrently as well as a little actor. This mixture Afro-masculinity, physical prowess and strong willpower soon made him make a statement in Hollywood. He quickly caught Warner Brothers' attention, which placed him in the well-known TV show Hoy and I, 1959 to 1963, where he portrayed Tom Leaker, the detective. His function as a dapper, brave private eye captivated spectators' attention and brought him to the attention of the country. But it was his function as Secret James T. West, a service agent in the inventive and thrilling series The From 1965 to 1969. Wild Wild West made him a household name, a combination of science and spy thrillers in the West fiction. The program was revolutionary in its genre blending. Conrad did most of his own antics, making him lovable Toad Myers and enhancing his standing as a Tao guy in real life. His on-screen physicality was unparalleled at the time, and it led to the development of a blueprint for the heroes of action while would come in coming decades. His rapport with Ross Martin, a co-star Timus Gordon provided coziness and the show's humor, which makes it a fan favorite. Then a cult favorite. Conrad was not in the Wild Wild West. Had a successful career in television. Television shows and films. He was the star of the well-liked NBC show Baba Black Sheep, subsequently changed to Black Sheep Squadron from the role of Pappy Boyington from 1976 to 1978, a real-life flying ace during World War II. Based on actual events, this role will demonstrate his range as an actor and his respect for military bravery. Additionally, he starred in other popular initiatives such as Assignment Vienna the Duke, as well as a number of other television-based films. He developed a large number of them under his own Conrad Productions. The corporation, his adaptability allowed him to depict a variety of personalities, including military from police officers to detectives and cowboys, each with a feeling of realistic grimness. Apart from performing, Robert Conrad Beckham, known for being ashalanging, off-screen as he was on it, he had a notorious contempt for stunt doubles and demanded bodily genuineness even as he grew older. This commitment to his portrayals of realism impacted actors for generations who appreciated his straightforward method of telling stories. Additionally, hosted a well-liked radio talk show, Robert Conrad's PM Show, later in life, in which he interacted with admirers and provided first-hand accounts of his lengthy career. Always being open and honest and with a keen sense of humor that won him over listeners, Robert Conrad's private affair showed a strong familial foundation, and his being a father and a husband was crucial. Off-screen to his identity. He got married, Joan Kenley, his first wife, in 1952 in the beginning of his acting career. Their union lasted for an remarkable 25 years, a noteworthy accomplishment in the entertainment sector renowned for its turbulent connections. Collectively they brought up 5 kids, establishing a busy and energetic home, in spite of the final dissolution of their marriage in 1977. Notably, they parted ways amicably. There was no public controversy or hostility documented, and they kept up their friendly and courteous relationship for their children's benefit. Companions and relatives frequently saw how the two continued to be helpful to one another even following a romantic breakup, which contributed to a feeling of security and consistency for their offspring. That 1977, the same crucial year, signified with the start of a new phase in Conrad's private life at the time of his meeting the young lady Lavella Ione Fan, where would end up being his second wife. There the conference was everything from typical. Conrad was 43 years old at the time, and Famous TV personality was serving as Miss National Teenagers McPageant, a gathering that honored poise, ability, and academic success among young Americans. Lavella, an incredibly composed and successful teen from Georgia's Howard, won the title. That year, however, their encounter, first expertly planned, swiftly became a romantic. In spite of their substantial age difference, Conrad was 25 years her senior. The two discovered a point of agreement in their family goals and value-centered principles. Their partnership flourished, and they were finally wed, establishing a second family. The 3 children were born after the marriage, adding to Conrad's developing paternal inheritance. He accepted his new position in this combinatively dynamic that is vivacious and devoted, frequently showing pride in the kids from both unions. But after moreover 30 years of dating, Robert and in 2010, Lavella got divorced. Similar to his initial divorce, this division was also managed with respect for one another and maturity. The pair continued to communicate politely, and Conrad kept up his close relationships with his two marriages' offspring. Interestingly, in spite of the possibility diffused in combining two families, particularly those who have kids from two generations apart, Conrad's two sets were known to get along with one another. Renowned. This uncommon harmony was frequently credited to Conrad's steady parenting approach and the value placed on loyalty, discipline as well as affection. His family life was distinguished by high ideals and a sense of solidarity, and he put a lot of effort into make certain that every one of his kids felt equally supported and adored. It was evidence of his nature and impacted the offspring of both unions solidly had strong relationships with each other. The passion Robert Conrad had for his family continued to influence his career life as well. He often worked together with his kids on TV initiatives, bringing his actual life to bringing fatherhood into his fictional universe. His Shane Conrad, his son, accompanied him on Thethy show High Mountain Ranges on television. 1988, a program Robert developed and starred in. Shane also collaborated with him in the 1989 spin-off Jesse Hawks. Christian Conrad, another son, also his father, and he shared the screen. Nancy, his daughter. Conrad had an appearance in different productions, frequently depicting powerful, competent, female characteristics like the vision her father had in mind. These partnerships were more than professional decisions. They were thoughts on Conrad's dedication to family and his faith in inheritance avarice through collaborative, creative attempts together with his kids in front of Joan, another daughter. And the camera, Conrad decided to take a different route behind scenes. She achieved success. Television producer, helping to entertainment industry from a show perspective. Her efforts illustrated the legacy of self-control, diligence, and Robert inspired a creative spirit in his kids. He frequently spoke with great delight in Joan's achievements of her accomplishments as a representation of the principles that he and Shimitha had taught from an early age. In the end, Robert Conrad's household was a fundamental aspect of who he was. He wasn't merely an action star or television personality. He was a loyal dad, a deferential ex-husband, and a man who placed a higher priority on family ties than of everything else. His legacy endures, not just through his iconic on-screen personas, but also via the kids and grandkids who bear his name and spirit into the next generation. Among everyone Robert Conrad collaborated with throughout his lengthy and frequently acrimonious, nobody ignited a Hollywood career more apparent animosity, underlying stress, or harboring animosity for his co-star Martin Ross. The two men were the stars. Together on the renowned television show of the 1960s Wild Wild West television series, in which they depicted the daring Secret Service agents Artemis, Conrad, and James West. Martin and Gordon's on-screen often chemistry concealed a relationship backstage that was anything but amiable. Despite the popularity of the show and their characters' dynamic interactions, Robert Conrad in private and occasionally Ross Martin, not so secretly hated, allegedly accusing him of being haughty, excessively knowledgeable, and on more than terrible. On one instance, Conrad, an arrogant, powerful, famous for performing his own stunts and adopting a rough, too masculine picture. Martin was frequently seen with a almost contemptuous in its contempt. Martin, skilled theatrical performer with Amista's level of fondness for Shakespeare, as well as proficiency in several languages, acted in a way that intellectual earnestness and academic, that intellectualism was at odds with significantly Conrad's Marenite blue-collar methods of performance. According to reports, Conrad thought Martin's dramatic flair and enduring personality changes on the program made him appear to have been constantly attempting to surpass him. Martin's revolving gallery of accents, disguises, and odditized mannerisms as the disguise expert. Critics commended Artemis Gordon. However, Conrad saw them as an obnoxious attempt to grab attention away from the star of the show. There, the collision of personal styles was as severe as their approaches of acting. Conrad, formerly an athlete and street fighter with a fiery temper, was renowned for being direct and honest, aggressiveness, and a craving for dominance. Martin was more refined, sophisticated, and Conrad was sophisticated in his manner, which, seen as arrogant superiority. Crew members claimed that Conrad was often contemptuous of Martin's opinions, occasionally mocking him on set, and the two frequently disagreed. In meetings for manufacturing, a former the show's writer recounted how their arguments became heated to the point where it was necessary to rewrite scripts to give Conrad more sequences when he is in charge because he believed Martin's persona was getting the excessive focus. Despite the Wild in 1969 Wild West came to an end, there was still tension. As soon as the cast got back together for TV films, in Conrad, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, said to have done so reluctantly and only following discussions that guaranteed he would maintain unmistakable control over the script. According to one insider, Conrad gritted his teeth whenever Martin's name was spoken, his teeth in conversations, and hardly covered his dislike when compelled to stand next to him at press conferences. Despite the fact that Martin was polite and competent, never speaking negatively about Conrad in public, those close to him stated that he was well aware of the hostility. The partnership stayed chilly tense and never made up, not even up until the premature death of Martin in 1981, according to some. Conrad's intense distaste for Ross Martin could have resulted from more profound fears, perhaps even. Conrad took great satisfaction in Martin's physique, his intellect, as well as the capacity to steal scenes with a single lifted eyebrow or a witty comment could have started a rivalry. Event 3: attending reaction. Regarding Robert Conrad, Martin might have stood for everything. Hollywood mistrusted him. The intellectual class, the theater chameleons, the performers who looked for curing instead of doing action. Finally, Robert Conrad, however, had his share of countless disputes and feuds all through his life. He has a history of conflicting with co-stars, directors, and producers. His anger toward Ross Martin was particularly noticeable as the bitterest and most persistent. Behind these sequences from one of them started action show, two celebrities were caught up in a personal Cold War. Just one duddy-browed fists and fire, while the other person polished in composure. Additionally, as the cameras captured friendship, Conrad's genuine feelings for Ross Martin persisted, dark, deeply ingrained, and two individuals who he was recognizable. At nightfall on March 31, 2003, a terrible and transformative incident happened that would provide a long-lasting shadow on the age of Robert Conrad's last years as he drove his Jaguar along a section of Highway 4, is a winding rural route. Foothills of the Sierra Nevada close to his living in California's Alpine County. Conrad became uncontrollable of the car and went over the median in the middle. His car collided head-on in a split second. With a 26-year-old driving a Subaru Burnett Kevin, the crash is disastrous. The two men suffered serious wounds. Conrad was 68 at the time, aged, experienced numerous traumas, and Burnett's wounds were taken in total and may be fatal according to investigations. Conrad had been drinking alcohol at the time when the crash occurred. His blood alcohol content level was discovered to be higher than the permitted limit, and the prosecution accused him of DUI as a felony. Even so, the case received a lot of media attention because of Conrad's well-known role as a nasty guy in shows like Bar and the Wild Wild West. He made no attempt to fight black sheep. The accusations made in court, rather entering a no plea, a legal strategy that enabled him to accept conviction without openly acknowledging. The court agreed to the plea and he was later found guilty of a felony, driving under the influence, or DUI, a severe setback to his reputation and an enlightening experience in his private life. The conviction's repercussions were not negligible. Conrad received a 6-month sentence for confinement to the house, a time when he was under electronic surveillance and prohibited from leaving his home except in certain circumstances. And furthermore, he was mandated to go through need alcohol treatment. As a component of Eighth Court's larger attempt to address the fundamental problems that underlie his driving under the influence, maybe the majority importantly, he was put on 5 years of probation, which means he would be scrutinized by the law enforcement system and could face more severe sanctions if he reoffends. However, the legal fallout was merely a portion of the narrative. In the months that followed, the Kevin Burnett launched a civil claim after the crash against Conrad, asking for compensation for the he suffered injuries and pain. That the matter was ultimately resolved out of court for an undisclosed amount in 2004. A typical result in such well-known examples where a confidentiality of finances and privacy are frequently discussed and agreed upon by parties. The settlements conditions were never made public, although most people believe that Conrad made a sizable payment to make up for Burnett's suffering and loss of life quality. Unfortunately, the accident's effects lasted even beyond the direct wounds. In 2005, only 2 years following the collision at the age of 28, Kevin Burnett passed away from ulcers with perforations. His relatives and public attributed complications to his death from the vehicle collision and the challenging, agonizing recuperation he underwent in theft. They claim that the trauma of the event, both tangible and emotional, had had a long-term negative impact on his well-being and health. However, Robert Conrad was never arrested in charge of Burnett's demise. The incident turned into a spooky period in his life, tainted by remorse and sadness. For Conrad personally, the mishap caused incapacitating wounds that will have an impact on him throughout his life. He suffered from significant nerve injuries, specifically on his right side body, which was only once renowned for his tall athleticism and a sense of adventure, who was renowned for performing his own stunts, delighted in acting out roles, was now confronting a harsh new reality characterized by restricted movement, persistent discomfort, and the permanent consequences of neurologic health. The difference between the strong on-screen presence he had for a long represented and the physical constraints he endured thus far may have been more roving. Robert's latter years, the majority of Conrad's life was spent outside of the public's attention, as his condition continued to refuse. Even though he occasionally enters and made appearances, thinking back on his work, he turned into becoming more and more withdrawn. February 8, 2020, he died in his house due to heart failure in Malibu, California. He was 84. His passing signified the conclusion of a difficult and occasional contest legacy that covered decades of fame in movies and television. but was moreover accompanied by personal conflicts, legal issues, and the lasting agony of one fatal night in a highway. In California,